Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Hey everybody, this is my friend, or who will soon be my friend, Dr. Frank Gibson. Now, Dr. Frank is a doctor, as I've said. I know that sounds like an oxymoron and I'm repeating myself, but he studied several disciplines that you may not be very familiar with. Let's just say hi to Dr. Frank. Hey, Dr. Frank, how you doing?
Hi, Emmett. I'm glad we get a chance to talk and we have some listeners that can kind of get into what we're doing.
Now, you are a doctor of holistic and Oriental medicine, correct?
Yeah, I have a degree in traditional Chinese medicine. My degree is a doctor of Oriental medicine, and I had 3 clinics, and I worked in treating people for lots of different disorders, and some of them needed help with more natural things, and I offered a lot of programs. Basically, I've worked with treating people integrally: Western medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, exercise, diet, lifestyle, and it's kind of what I do now in what we're doing with our company and how we help people.
You know, I'm a little bit versed in Chinese medicine in the fact that I had plantar fasciitis, and it was bugging the crap out of me. And some people are like, it'll go away, or not much we can do without cutting you. And a friend of mine suggested that I go to an acupuncturist, and I went to this beautiful, very old Chinese woman. And she took care of so many things that were ailing me, and I have not had a problem since. And I've been a fan since that was about a year ago. And this stuff just went away. And what opened me up was like traveling to San Francisco. So can you tell me how you chose that path versus this Western medicine pill pusher kind of lifestyle?
Well, I actually was very successful in a restaurant career, as you and I know, from our conversation in the old town of Detroit and in Florida and Texas. And so that was my first success. And after I got very fortunate and sold the company, I was pretty young, I decided to do something that helped people. And I tried to get back into school, get to medical school, and I worked on, actually was going, I like islands. I was going to St. Vincent's offshore, and I got into it, and I thought, this is pills, and there's a place for it. If I get hit by a train, I'm not going to an acupuncturist, but, I think I have a lot more confidence in the body. And so I really explored it, and I ended up going and studying in Singapore and learning traditional Chinese medicine. And when I opened my clinics, I had 3 clinics, I really realized that we had to have an integral approach. There's times you need Western medicine. If you go to a hospital in China with extremely high hypertension, they're going to give you a drug, but they're going to give you exercise, diet, and herbs, and wean you off the drug. So there's a place for both. And I came back, and then when I opened my clinics in the U.S., that's what I did. I had integral-based clinics, and people, would come to me. I don't want to take any medications, but often I would say, look, you need them. You've had this probably for 10 years. You can't go get some acupuncture or drink a bag of herbs. So it really has a place in America and the West, but I think its place is more integral. It's not that one's good and one's bad. That's how I've approached it. Now, so I approach it today with the work I do with our program.
Good. Coming up, my mom and my grandma and various women would have these remedies for, whatever ails you. And that seemed to have fallen off. And that goes back to historical methods of treating whatever ails you. Have you seen, does that tie into some of the things that you do as well?
Absolutely. I before I actually created this program and that I have now, my first book was called Age with Energy, and what I did was I found people like your grandmother and people in the mountains of North Carolina and Appalachians, and I found that these remedies existed, but I might find the same remedy in Greece or Arabia or China. And I think people are just more natural. They're more tied into their body, and what I do now started actually when I lived with a 39 generation family that practiced Chinese medicine in China, and I came across an herb formula that was a list of 7 herbs, and the best I could tell from my translation abilities and reading this was that it said that it was for alcohol. And I asked the grandfather, I said, is this? He said, yeah, it's for alcohol. People have alcohol. It makes them not want it as much. I said, does it work? And he said, well, we've passed it down for 600 years. Of course it works. So that's the point. If these things lasted, they probably have some truth to them.
And with that, because you have this, let me digress a little bit. Let me get my words together. Your focus now is helping people who have an alcohol addiction, or what we would commonly say alcoholics, to find some closure with it and some control over that mechanism that's driving them. Can you explain how you built that out, what it consists of?
Yes, Emmett. There are right now, each year, 15 million Americans that don't seek treatment for their alcohol disorder. Only about 1.2 million people went into treatment last year. So I'm changing that. I had 3 clinics, a pretty easy life, and I moved into creating a new industry, challenging all the outdated addiction treatment protocols. I started a revolution in the addiction industry, and I have to say it's the most rewarding and important thing I've ever done in my life. And, when we talked earlier when we first met, we talked about, how you face changes and how you face barriers and how you move into them. And I know you've done it. I know you've conquered it, and you help people do that. And I'm very appreciative of people like you that can sort of take people and help them break through those things. But what I found in my clinics, Emmett, was in treating people that I ascertained that about 40% what I was being asked to cure were diseases that were exacerbated or caused by the excessive use of alcohol. I have to say I was naive. I didn't realize how big a problem this was. I also became aware that almost all of the 14,000 treatment centers in the U.S. were stuck in a 1950s era treatment protocol with no modern advances that utilize the current science of alcohol addiction. So I created my own program based on science, not finances or occupancy rates. So we basically less than 7% of those in need ever seek treatment. So I analyzed the barriers that were keeping them from that. I put this into my own clinic alcohol program with an 84 success rate at the end of 1 year. And we realized we had to get this out of the clinical setting. It was $7,500 in our clinical setting. I dropped the price to $790. I got it directly to the client. I removed the barrier costs, eliminated the social stigma, gave the client complete anonymity, and developed an 8-week at-home life-changing program that's restored over 8,000 lives and their family. So it's exciting, but it's been challenges, and I know that you're familiar with challenges.
Yeah, I'm familiar with challenges, and I'm familiar with alcoholism. And I'm not saying that I'm an alcoholic, but I've grown up in an urban environment. And the urban environment, particularly when you're a person of color, places you with some challenges in your life that may have an emotional toll that may drive you towards a substance. And I've known some people who are alcoholics who are, it's not said, and they're really functional and highly intelligent people, but their lifespan is short. And they're simply drinking too much. And let me help clarify this with your listeners. I know you and I have talked about this and you understand it, is that there's a big difference in people who drink excessively and people who are actually dependent on alcohol. Mm-hmm. Very small percentage of those who abuse alcohol are dependent on it. And what is the problem in America is, and it's the number one health problem in America and the number one health problem in the world, is that there's people who simply drink way more than they intend to drink. They go out to have an evening and they think they're going to have a couple of beers and they have a couple of 6-packs. They're sitting at dinner, the waiter keeps filling their glass, and they have more than they want because the body has lost its chemical balance in the brain. This is what we know in science today. This is what everyone agrees with. When I started this in 93, there was a lot of obstacles to the fact that all that existed was the abstinence philosophy,
the National Institute of Health, all the treatment programs, the Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know what? For someone who has a problem with alcohol, it's probably the best prescription. But they're driven by an imbalance in their brain. Has nothing to do with changes. In other words, go out, Bill, quit drinking. My gosh. Now we know alcohol is a disease. You can't blame someone for their disease. You can blame them if they don't take steps to try to fix it. But what we do is I created a product called Sobrex, and it creates an opportunity for the body to change so it no longer craves excessive alcohol. And at the end of 8 weeks, Emmett, and I can hardly believe it myself, they literally are leaving a half a beer on them, and if they open the third one, they're not drinking excessively. If they're not, we give them more stuff and say, look, let's do another month, or let's go through the whole program again. I mean, it's guaranteed, and it works because their bodies are changing. You can't just tell people to control it. They're going to go through the rest of their life waiting for trouble, and so is their family. This way, they're relieved of it. I mean, it's an incredible thing. I can hardly believe it. And, I spent 6 years developing it. I've been doing this for 26 years. It's just great.
And when you developed this, was it a journey that you said, this is what I'm going to do? Or did life point you in that direction and give you an inkling and said, this is possible? I know you alluded to it earlier, but sometimes it's better for people to understand the journey to identify with something.
Oh, absolutely. And this was one of these things that if I hadn't done it at some point in my life, I would have looked back and said, why didn't I do this? I mean, it didn't make sense. I was a restaurateur. I have my first degree in music. None of this ties in, but now I see why it makes sense. And it prepared me to do this. It prepared me to go through, some tough times trying to get this out there to people. And, when we come across these things, we have to take steps. I like you because you make steps clear to people. I like your New Year's. How hard is that? You presented something that for people like, hey, here's something you can do. I felt I had to do an obligatory New Year's blog, and I didn't want to tell people, go out and run out and do this and give them some hard thing. You know what I ended up saying was I've given up making resolutions for a year and replaced them with a dedication to think in terms of one-day resolution every day. You told people what? Okay, who can't do this? That's my point. What you told them in New Year's was try to meet new people. A new activity, right? And it was traveling.
Yep.
Learn a skill. Change your style. Get a new haircut. I mean, really? I sit that and I go, okay, I like this guy. You're onto it there.
Most people.
So, yes.
Most people make those resolutions and they think very grandly. And even myself, when I said I'm going to make a change, I think about the end and why I'm not there right after I conjure that thought. And as I've learned, because I'm 50, and what I've learned is you have to take baby steps. You have to take these little, literally one step at a time. But some people don't understand that concept. They think it's one giant step, one leap. No, it's just slow and steady.
Yeah. No, and that's the first thing I came across when I started, when I got to know you by reading what you do is the idea of baby steps. I've done over 160 seminars in the U.S. and Switzerland and Germany. And I get people excited because I'm passionate about what I do, and I teach them healthy exercises, and they're like, I'm going to do this every day. And at the end, I always say, you know what? Tell me you're going to just do it on Saturday morning. And if you're real good at that after a couple months, then throw in Sunday, maybe Wednesday night. But, we set ourselves up to fail so much. So when I saw that this was laying in front of me, I mean, what are the odds? I lived with a family that had this ancient formula they'd used in China for 600 years. I dropped out of medical school and went into Chinese medicine. I mean, in the 80s, nobody knew doing that. So I just kind of followed it. And I started by, what I've gone back in my life and determined are sort of rules of engagement. The first thing that I did, and I would tell people is identify what you want and what you need to get there. And don't ever forget the difference between want and need, because that's where it starts. I think that what you do and what people that do things similar to you is like you help people understand what's that little baby step. It's not, sell your house, get all the cash, and run out and throw this at some passion you think you have. I tell people all the time, yeah, I'm passionate. People talk to me, they get that. But just because it's a passion doesn't mean it's not going to fail. Right?
That's absolutely true. When you've been around quite a few years, just like I have, and you've seen a lot of things change. And one of the things that I've seen change dramatically is the obesity rate, obesity rate, and the fact that we are addicted to so many things.
Yeah.
Not just alcohol, but is there a way for people to begin just to plant a seed in someone so they can take a step back? And I always go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's what kind of the base of my journey is, looking at the bottom rungs and just perfecting those things first, which is just being able to breathe, walk around, have mobility. That's my latest thing, is mobility, because I realize I'm not as mobile as I should be. Is there something from your history of dealing with organic medicine, as I would like to call it, that could help people to move forward in that way?
Well, I think the first is what you're doing is you're going to the bottom rung. You're looking at where do we have to start? What do we have to help them break through? I mean, they make these obstacles. There's no obstacles, really. I mean, there are no obstacles. I mean, to me, barriers are not obstacles. In business, it's a strategy definition. In my personal life, it means that I have to look at my courage and my perseverance. And you mentioned being older, and a lot of people that are around your age they're still sitting there thinking about wishing, hey, I think I want to do this. And that drives me crazy. You won't maybe not want to admit it, but I think it probably drives you crazy. So it takes a lot of wisdom, and it takes a long time to get wisdom, to be aware of what you want in life, and to combine that with being open and fearless to any possibility. And so we have to start in helping people, in my view, is that start with what's the problem. The root of the problem is, in my view, working with people, whether it's addiction or overcoming health, or they're totally in terrible shape, or they're obese, or people are stagnant. Why are they stagnant? I believe, and you've reverted to this several times in things I've read that you've written, and you and I have talked about it. It's fear of failure. Most people do have a plan. They have a dream, but it's in their head, and they'll put it off for their entire lifetime rather than to risk failure. So, or anything can happen. They kind of have to address that. And you know what? Most people should put it off if they have any question about making the leap.
Well said. Absolutely well said. One of the things in fear is it is so debilitating in our modern society, where we are actually doing things that don't have a lot of intrinsic value out of fear. And we have this kind of surface stuff that we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
And it leads us down a path of like no virtue. And you see other countries that are surpassing us. For instance, I started writing this book, and it's about 8,000 words in, where most countries are far above us in education. And for some odd reason, we're so bombarded in this country that we can't filter out the noise. How can, as a person, you and I have been through some things. And there's this generation who just wants it now, and it's partially our fault because we coddled them a little bit. But how can we get back? How can we get back to being healthy, being mentally, getting our Trinity? And our Trinity, and this is in a book that I read, book that I wrote, The Journey of One. There's a thing that we have, it's called the Trinity. It's your mind, it's your body, and it's your soul. And I think today that ours is one of those is really small and the other ones are big, or one is prominent. You know what I mean? It's out of balance. How do we get to that balance back in life? And you've kind of talked about how you help people get back in balance with their addiction. Is there other things that we can focus on too?
whether it's addiction or anything else. I mean, you can believe me. You know a little bit about my story. When I tell you from my own personal experience, I've had true passions, and some of them are music and hobbies or sailing, but it's 100% all the time. And if anything's a true passion, you will really risk it all of it without question. If you end up with no money, it doesn't matter. You will have earned more self-respect, integrity, and dignity than can ever be imagined. And you're right. The focus to me is on things that money can't buy. I've had a good life. I've had most of everything I wanted, but there's not a point in my life that I've ever measured my life by my belongings. Because on the last day of my life, I'm just going to be joyous that I never compromised.
Dr. Frank, you are a spry person. I've watched your videos, and how can someone live like you live?
Well, here's the thing. First, they have to understand that they can. See, my story, your story, we can tell all these stories to people, but people need to realize, hey, just go out and make your own story. You can do it. I mean, that's the first thing. That's what I'm saying about we help people get unstuck. And, you know, I'll tell you what, one of the teachers that I loved the most, that taught me the most, I lived with a Chinese family for 14 months, and he told me when I left, you know, I said, hey, isn't there supposed to give me some words of wisdom when I leave? He's 90 years old. And he said, yeah. He said, no matter how you help anyone, make sure you leave them with the understanding they did it themselves.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
And see, that's so the answer to your question more specifically is, how do we help people? What do they need to start this journey to build themselves back, to realize they can get unstuck, they can do it? It comes down to self-respect and their own personal dignity. If they don't have that, how and you mentioned different cultures, and I've spent a lot of time traveling, a lot of time in Europe and on pleasure and in business, and there's a different thing there in terms of self-respect. You have to have self-respect before you can respect your life, before you can respect others. We're trying to sometimes talk to people about, hey, why don't you have respect for this? And we see signs that it isn't in themselves. They've got to connect with their own being and see that, hey, you know, I'm powerful. I'm really a great guy, you know. And they have to, they have to understand there's some fun in this too. This isn't drudgery. This is serious fun.
Now,
do you agree? I know you do.
Yeah,
I know you do.
Yeah, I was trying not to laugh in the microphone because, you know, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing out of recognition. I'm laughing out of the things that I've done in my life, particularly the mistakes I've made. I've embarrassed myself, emotionally embarrassed myself, and you know, you still carry that with you because you may not get the chance to say I'm sorry, but you have to go past it because life is very dynamic. And here's one of the things I say to people. You know, you may be at a hard time right now. Let's say you're hanging on a rope and you're at the end of the rope. There's always enough rope for you to tie a knot so you can plant yourself and keep hanging.
Yeah. Well, and you'll be successful in what you're undertaking now because you understand that. You understand the root of this. And I think that you're like me in that I've always done exactly what I wanted because I always believed I could have any life I choose. And you tell people that and they kind of shake their head and you know they don't believe it. I think I read something where you said to people that people fail because they don't honestly try to reach their goals. Yeah. They don't try. They talk themselves in. They think they're going to do it. Well, you know, I've relied on my talent, which is just the ability to tie into passion, and I have great discipline. And once you get me committed to something, you know, or I decide I'm committed to something, all of that passion is the root of any success I have. And I'm working on being patient with people who do limit themselves, and I think you probably must face that with the people that you help.
Oh yeah, because it's sometimes my patience is short because it's like I'm looking at paradise and I'm like, hey man, hey lady, hey, whoever, I'm going to take you around the block, and we're going to have to go through a river, and we're going to climb over a short hill. But when we get there, it's paradise. And
yeah, but you gave them the steps. You just did it again. You gave them the steps. You said, let's get over that hill, right? You didn't point into the Milky Way and say, we're going over there. You said, hey, here's something that's attainable. And I think that's critical. And when I read your baby steps and then I saw your New Year's thing this year, I thought, okay, there you go. Okay, anybody can do that. What you're giving them is something that they can eat the whole meal. And, I look at that with people when I try to work with them, is that it's kind of like a buffet in the beginning. They're out there picking from here, and like you go to a buffet and you go, oh, here's some lobster. That looks good. And I'll try these green beans. You go sit down, and then you go back, and maybe you know what you like. And we have to let people, easily kind of graze through the buffet. Try to meet new people. Try a new activity. You even told them how to do that. Travel far. It's shocking to me how narrow Americans are, because they just don't realize that the global thought that permeates most of the rest of the world. Even look at China. They came from communism in 1989, and look what they're doing. And then that's the expansiveness is what we can help people understand, but we can't understand that obstacle that they create for themselves. We have to give them a tool, like you just said. Okay, we're going to grand travel, but first let's just kind of get the stuff in the suitcase.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, and I've been reading about this thing called people have the calcification of the pineal gland. This third eye that we all have. And people may think I'm a little bit kooky, but I'm a very fact-based, science-based person. I've always been that way. I've always loved science, but the ephemeral, the spiritual cannot be denied, because everybody who's listening to this has had something in their life happen, and they got out of a situation that they were like, how did that happen? That I should have been done for, whatever. And you have to believe in this beautiful dynamic. This is why it's called the Billionaire Lifestyle, because everybody is a billionaire. We have 1 billion cells. At the very minimum, we own those cells. Our spirit owns those cells. So we are already billionaire. Now you just have to say, with intent, this is the lifestyle I want to lead. And it doesn't have to be finite. You can live this lifestyle for 4 years, 4 months, 10 years, 50 years, but you create it. And with people like you who are looking to help people, for instance, with the alcohol addiction, with how to live longer, and how to are giving you keys on how to help you live those lifestyles, particularly with the alcohol. I want to get back to that, by the way, because you and I could go on forever, and I know we could. But with the alcohol addiction, is that the same thing as tied to other opiates?
No, it's not. We're talking about different brain centers and different brain chemicals, but I think one of the failures of the 1950s style addiction that's pushed on people today by the treatment centers, they try to lump it all together, and it's different. I mean, it has to come down to changing the body. You tell someone, just quit drinking. What's the matter with you, Uncle Bill? No, that's like telling someone with a stroke to go run a mile. They physiologically can't do it. The science today, and everyone was in agreement by 2011 that we have to address this as a brain chemical imbalance. And that's what I focused on when I started researching this in 1987. And I had a program and a product by 93, and I developed it, and I kept developing it. So working with clients, and over 1,100 clients, I followed them, some of them for as much as 5 years. But the point was that I realized the power of the human body, and this is what you're talking about, these cells and this pineal gland, and the fact that people have the power. They have to find a way to not make the obstacle, because they're the ones that are making it. We all have You won't even have the same cells. I complain about what happened when you were 5. Well, you're not even the same physiological being you were when you were 5, right?
That's
you
true.
got all new cells. You get a new stomach every 2 weeks. Your body's always in a state of change. And so that's what I try to help people understand when I'm addressing. And we're talking about people changing their lives, and that's what we're talking about with what we do with our program. It is possible. And if you look at, and you have, I know, and you look at how we market, our marketing isn't on, hey, go buy this product. It's help-based, much more than transaction-based. We use our social media as a platform for knowledge and positive exposure and growth. People know and trust us because most people don't even trust themselves, and we're going to go out and help try to get them to trust us. Why do people trust you? You're honest. I can see it. As you probably know, I do a fair number of these types of programs, and I'm 2 minutes into it. How you and I first met and talked, and I kind of know the people that are just, hey, I really want to help you. I really want to help you realize that you can do it, and that's not just talk. It's a plan that they have. But you're unleashing it. You're not reinventing the wheel or inventing something for them. Is my understanding correct?
Yeah, it's this. I see the potential in everyone. I literally see potential. It's like a glow. And I really see it in people who don't see it in themselves. I see it as a glow. And I try to, shine it up, buff it up, and make it bigger so that we can get to this vision that I know is possible, which is there's this utopia. All of us want something and we think it's the same thing, and it is not. Everybody wants, if everybody went after their thing, there is enough on this planet, universe, and multiverse for us to have everything that we desire for the need and fulfillment of our spirit. It is there.
I agree. And I've looked a lot at that. And I've looked at why I was able to do it. I was a jazz musician working professionally when I was 15. I got a degree in music. I got drafted, and I came out and went to business school, opened restaurants. Stuff was in front of me. 10 years in the restaurant business, got lucky, sold it, had 9 years off to go to school and stretch out. And I look back and I think, how did that happen? But I think it started because I grew up in an incredibly secure family environment. It was like Leave It to Beaver. I think there was a type of freedom. No, it was, where I could stretch out my young life. And my parents were really strict. And that was a good balance to my own, to put it nicely, personal sense of freedom. It was just good. But, I wasn't bound. Even exploring my spiritual life, I didn't feel bound. And this security that I was surrounded with gave me freedom that's really molded my whole life. And I'm a little deficient sometimes, not understanding that people don't all grow up with that. And I think that's part of what I try to help people do in the alcohol. When I used to work with them one-on-one, and I still answer every email, and I will get on with patients and clients if I do, but we used to do this in we have a retreat facility when we had people coming, but it just filled up, so we had to put it online so we could reach more people and help them. We dropped the price, and I go back and think about when 4 of them were staying in this lodge for 5 days, and they were learning about natural cooking. It wasn't a cooking class, but we talked about it. They were doing exercises, and then the family'd come on the 5th day. And Emmett, to see these people, they were they're maybe 45, 50, 55 years old, or somewhere younger. The family come up and hey, I learned how to, about this, and I learned about that. Their pride was coming back, and they were starting to feel secure in their ability, and that to me is what we have to do. You can't say it's like your first rung on the ladder, your steps to the pyramid is that you can't just say, hey, go out and explore your spiritual life, or go over there. What's if they're bound? What is it that releases it? And like you said, the end result isn't going to be, the dream isn't the same for everyone, but security isn't the same for everybody. So this is what you do is a difficult task. And mine is easier in the way. No, it is. What I do is, if they take Suboxone, even if they don't want to stop drinking, doesn't make them sick, but they're going to start leaving, drinks around, and their body just naturally gets in order. You've got to, everybody you work with, I'm assuming you've got to kind of get to know them and feel them. You can't figure it out in your brain and psychologically. I think you just have to face it that, okay, who is this person? And then something I don't know, I make these assumptions, but I think this is correct. Something comes out of you and you just know what to do.
I do.
You don't have a plan, do you? You don't have a plan. I can tell.
I don't need one. Because I know what I want.
Exactly. A guy asked me on a show last week. He said, "Gosh, I read your blog. How do you come up with the subjects you write about?" Well, okay. Well, let's see. This week, my New Year's thing, it was about what I told you, and it was also about how I woke up and it was New Year's, and I wanted this really, really bad, this great muffin that they make down at Harriet's. It's a key lime muffin, and but people, they start out the new year like depriving themselves. I'm serious. That muffin serves my soul, dude. I can't do without it. And it's like we're so rigid in this country. We're like rigid to the point we fail. We actually undertake changing our lives to cultivate and develop ourselves. What we end up is cultivating failure because we make it so hard that we can't achieve it. Yeah. And I think that's why you need someone like you to kind of take them by the hand. I don't think you do, from what I read.
No, I don't.
Somehow.
I'm just living by example. I'm living the example because people are like, "How do you do what you do?" And I just say, I try to fail, which means here it is in a nutshell. I'm going to try something, and I have an inkling that I might not do great at it. I might suck at it. I might be the worst. But I'm going to learn that one thing during that period, what I need to do to be better. Yeah, I sucked at it then, but when I go into the next round of it, I know that person's going to throw a left hook right out the gate, so I'm going to bob. And then,
yeah, I get it, but I'm guessing.
And that's just it. All you got to do is every round, you have to learn something. By the time you get to the end, you knock the person out, or you knock out what you're trying to do.
You're right. And I'm guessing that you don't spend a whole lot of time dwelling on your past bad experience.
No, because I've had quite a few of them. No. Hey, I got one other question, and this has been plaguing me, and I've been wanting to ask you this question since our paths kind of began to convene. When it comes to the indigenous people of the Americas, they have I think it's spiritual, physical thing with alcohol. How does that come into play, and have you had any interaction with Native people of America with this program?
It's a huge, huge problem among Native Americans. And there's not a particular gene that says that identifies that you're going to be an alcoholic. But we know from birth that there are SNPs, mutations on certain genes that cause a low-level response to alcohol. And most of the indigenous people have this imbalance. And we've been working on some programs, and our medical director, Dr. Clark, has some connections in the government in Arizona, and we would really like to go in and do a test program for them because it's a devastating problem for them, and it's largely being ignored. And about 3 years ago, the Bureau of Indian Affairs took the treatment programs off the reservations. And, there just has to be a way. So we're actually working on a program using interns and people that get engaged and stay on the reservation and help them, because it's not just Indians. Some people are born with a tendency towards a problem with alcohol use disorder. And my product, Sobrexa, changes the body. It creates an energy. It creates a change in the body, not by making it do something, but by creating an opportunity, because our bodies are always seeking balance. And that's why I know we'll be successful with the Indians. It's not a death sentence, for their bodies are just, their brains are just out of balance. And when I wrote my book, I thought, okay, what's the most unusual thing the body does to rebalance itself? And I went through all kinds of things. And recently, I don't know if you've seen it, but about a month ago, they discovered that the spleen, if it gets ruptured, cells travel to other places that are nourished with blood strong, grows a new spleen. Some people have 2 spleens. In fact, 20% of people have grown a new spleen. That's pretty amazing. I probably would have put that in my book. But here's the one, and you brought up obesity. For every pound of weight you gain, your body creates 7 miles of new blood vessels. So you gain 10 pounds, you have 70 miles of blood vessels. How's that for for homeostatic balancing? For every pound you lose, your body dissolves and absorbs 7 miles of blood vessels. I mean, we have incredible bodies, and all I do is join the body in this fight that people have had, trying to make sense of it psychologically, and we just join with the body, and the body recognizes it, finds a way to bring these 2 brain chemicals that are out of balance. It's science, it's proven, but it's not being used. I can't wait to get an opportunity to work with the indigenous Indians. I mean, it's just so much of a need.
Okay, Dr. Frank, I'm going to ask you this question, and I'm just starting this with, I can only ask it with certain guests. What are your top 5 books? Outside of your books, we're going to get to those, but what are your top 5 books, if you have 5?
I don't know. I do have, but I have to say that books are really important, because how do you know what to say to someone? How do you should read this book, because we don't know people. I think that I asked someone I really trust, I said, how do you choose a book? Says, go in and hold it in your hand. But I'll tell you, I think my favorite, number 1, is Confucius's Great Learning and his Book of Rights. And the reason is because I think these could be very beneficial to all people, because they guide people to recognize and fulfill their responsibilities towards others. Both these books are closely associated with human nature, ethics, social order, and as in the fact of achieving a state of balance and refining our moral self. I mean, that's if that's all I ever read, I'd probably be happy.
That's fine, because I have some. Now, let's go to the other side. What are your books titles, and where can they be obtained?
Well, my first book, Age with Energy, unfortunately is out of print, and I'm re-editing and putting it out. I think the most important thing I can steer people through is to go to the website, lastcallprogram.com, and go on there and get my free guide. The free guide will, it's a portion of the chapters of my book, and it really does help people understand how the brain, what we know about the brain, and why this works. And I think that's the first step. And if they want to buy my book and everything else, but I think the most important thing is not worrying about, like you say, baby step. Not worrying about, I'm going to get on there. This guy was cool. I'm going to go buy his program. No, I don't want you to. I want you to find out why you can. I want you to find out what I've learned, what the new science is, and why it's important for people to understand that. And when they do, then it changes. It changes because it makes sense to them. And so that's my recommendation. Of everything else I would say to them is go to thelastcallprogram.com, read my blog, read about us in the news, listen to the podcasts, then get the free download. And then if you want to come back and you can buy the book from Amazon, or you can buy my book from the website, what matters to me is that I'm not in the process of going out and selling a program. I'm in the process of educating people. We do so much better when we work with people and let them know that, hey, more than anything, and this is the God's honest truth, more than anything in my life, I want to help people overcome. This is the most devastating thing that hits every single culture. We've got statistics that I don't usually throw out, but I mean, listen to this one. 2.5 million years of potential life are lost every year due to alcohol-related deaths. That's a CDC number. 2.5 million years of potential loss. 9 million children live with an alcohol-dependent parent. 7% of divorces are caused by alcohol abuse. Alcohol contributes to 88,000 deaths annually. And the 92% of people that need help still don't seek help. And we're changing that. We're changing it because of something that's simple. Download the simple explanation. I use marbles to understand how these brain chemicals are out of balance. Then if they want to go buy my book, A Way Out, Why People Crave Alcohol and What They Can Do About It, fine. They can get it from Amazon. They actually can go to our website and get it in a download. But it's not about willpower. And you know what? If you went through treatment and you failed and your family's mad at you because you didn't get through one of the treatment programs or you came out and started drinking in the year, it's not your fault. Every expert will say it's not your fault. You were misdiagnosed. And what we're telling people is you can do this. There's thousands and thousands of people that talk about it. And I think when you connect with me, when you connect with my videos and you connect with who I am, it's a start to realize that our medical director, Dr. Clark, who would call me up because the program worked for her, our call center people, I mean, most of the people have gone through this program, and we're changing the world. And what more can you do in life than that?
Well, that's awesome. Excuse me, I got that little bit of winter cold thing. I don't even think it's a cold thing because it's dry. But we are at the 47-minute mark, and we've gone way longer than the attention span of the average American.
So you're a fun guy. I can't help it.
So I'm going to end this podcast. And Dr. Frank, I want to thank you, man. This was awesome.
No, I've had fun. I mean, it's such a blessing in my life to meet people like you. Thank you so much for having me on, Emmett.
So here's what I need you to do. I need, when this comes out, it might be about a month or so, because, I ask the universe, God, to say, hey, give me some help here. I need some people to talk to so that people can relate to me and I can relate to them by getting a separate perspective. So they've been coming out the woodwork. I mean, it's just been amazing. And I just need your help, and I need the public's help to make this aware that my why is to help you. My why is to show you that there's a different perspective. You're not alone, and there is a way. You just have to find out your why, and everything else will be shown. With that, that's the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. Thanks, Doc.
Thank you, Emmett. Talk to you soon.
All right.